You are now listening to Protecting Your Nest with board-certified family medicine and obesity medicine specialist Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com. Welcome to Protecting Your Nest. Today, it's just you and me as we focus on how we think. Henry Ford was quoted saying, "Rather you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." And I 100% agree. How you think affects every aspect of the nest and rope. And although I still believe nutrition is the most critical aspect of reversing the root cause of many chronic diseases, there is no doubt that it is closely followed or even tied with how we think. Over our lifetime, others' words and thoughts have shaped how we perceive and see the world. I hope that some of my life experiences and those of our guests will help reshape how you view the world while never devaluing the importance of ultimately becoming an independent thinker. With this podcast, I hope it will help guide you from your current state to a place where your thoughts better serve your unique needs and provide additional guardrails to protect you from thoughts that don't really serve you anymore. As you listen to this episode, let's walk together as we explore a few ways to see how our thoughts impact every aspect of our lives. With that knowledge, we will evaluate individually what can I do differently, what seems to be a gap in how I view the world, how can I move forward with processes that maximize how I can approach thoughts as they enter my mind, and most importantly, how can I minimize self-limiting thoughts. I'm really excited to begin, so let's get started. You know, what you do day in and day out is mostly done on autopilot, if you really think about it. We therefore do most of our day-to-day activities without much thought. But on the other hand, where do the instructions for our autopilot actions come from? Many thought leaders like Dr. Joe Dispenza, author of Evolve Your Brain and You Are the Placebo, and I love the title of that second book, he would argue that our thoughts lead to our habits, which occur unconsciously and without emotion. And that's really interesting. In other words, it's pretty much automatic. I thank Dr. Dispenza for being one of the people to help frame our thoughts about how we think, since many of our views on the subject of thought come from experts like him. So pause for a moment and think of some of the habits that you currently have. And as you pause, think about whether or not they serve you. During that brief pause, do you think you want to change any of those habits or replace them with habits you feel will help you achieve your ideal state better? Well, if that sounds like you, I have some good news for you. If you go to the root cause or reason you have habits, you may be well on your way to having more control over those habits. So the question is, what's the root cause? Well, it may surprise you, but Dr. Dispenza would argue that it's your thoughts. Well, yes, your thoughts. And they provide the foundation of every habit you currently have. And your thoughts are a reflection of your unique life experiences. That's what's so cool about life, is that we all have a slightly different journey. And if you peel the onion back even further, it's the unique life experiences of every single person you have interacted with in the past that really shapes who you are. So imagine reflecting on all the people you've spent time with over the years and think about how they see and perceive the world. What are the chances all these interactions have served you well? Just think about that. If you were to take an honest inventory, you'd probably delete some of those interactions from your life experiences, right? But of course, that's not the point. Taking a moment to reflect will help you better understand that your thoughts are a manifestation of many interactions that have made you the person you are today. Now, here's where things get more interesting. Your thoughts that result from these interactions are all attached to various emotions that you have. Psychologist Paul Ekman, during the 1970s, described 6 basic emotions that he suggested were universally experienced in all human cultures. The emotions he identified were happiness, sadness, disgust, fear, surprise, and anger. He later expanded this list to include pride, shame, embarrassment, and excitement. And a 2017 study suggests that there are far more basic emotions than previously believed. In fact, in the study published in Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences, researchers identified 27 different emotion categories. So although there's no need to discuss every emotion, I think it would be helpful to pause and look at a couple. So let's take a moment to understand better how our emotions impact our behavior, but just looking at 2 emotions described by Ekman. And we'll start with my favorite, happiness. Of all the different types of emotions, happiness tends to be the one we desire the most. It's what we strive for each and every day, and I think we all can agree with that. Happiness is often defined as a pleasant emotional state that is characterized by feelings of contentment, joy, gratification, satisfaction, and well-being. We express it with our facial expressions, body language, and even our voice tone. So why should we care about whether we are happy or not, is what you're probably asking. Well, it's because happiness and our health are connected. So happiness has been linked to longevity, which is a big deal in my mind, and even satisfaction in marriage. While the opposite is true as well, and being unhappy is linked to a variety of poor health outcomes, including lowered immunity, which is not a great idea in a pandemic, by the way, as well as inflammation, decreased life expectancy, stress, anxiety, and depression. So as you can see, if your thoughts are the opposite of happy, you may find yourself more prone to being sick. Now, the other emotion I want to touch on briefly is the emotion of fear. And as you could imagine, fear is a powerful emotion that can also play an important role in survival. So when you face some sort of danger and experience fear, you go through what is known as fight or flight. And you've heard that term before. Your muscles become tense, your heart rate and respiration increase, and your mind becomes more alert. It primes your body to either run from the danger or stand and fight. This response really helps to ensure that you are prepared to deal with threats in your environment effectively. Fear is an emotional response to an immediate threat. But imagine if you're not really running from a lion, but have your supervisor, for example, giving you a hard time, and they become your source of fear. We can also imagine that's probably not a good idea to have constant fear like that. We can also develop a similar reaction to anticipated threats or even our thoughts about potential dangers. And this is what we generally think of as anxiety. So with that as your foundation, imagine knowing that each of your thoughts is attached to an emotion. So rather it's happiness, unhappiness, which we can call sadness, fear, or others we didn't even talk about, there's this connection. So not only did your thoughts and the emotions attached to them impact your life in the past, but will do the same in the future. Yes, how you interact in your current reality. So imagine you had a bad relationship where the normal state of that relationship was one filled with fear because of how he or she harmed you in the past. Although that relationship is not your current relationship, those feelings from the past are just hard to shake. And because that has become your norm, you're likely to expect it, and therefore your default coping mechanism may be stuck viewing the world through the lens of negativity. And even when you try, you may find yourself in a loop where you are stuck, not being able to restore your ability to react positively in your new relationships. Even when your rational, more objective part of the brain tries to push you towards positivity, your body will over and over again default back to how it's always handled things in the past, leaving you feeling trapped. Now, the good news is to overcome this, our brains need to be reprogrammed. This is something that has to be done intentionally over and over again. And in other words, you got to really keep going at it. Just think about it. Just the process of listening to me talk about this subject today is reprogramming your mind. Think about the previous guests we've had on the podcast, for example. So before I met Dr. Joan Iflin, for example, I was not sure that processed food addictions was a thing. I really hadn't heard that much other than, lay talk. I certainly didn't know there were 11 diagnostic criteria for processed food addiction. Now I think about my patients' struggles to stick to a low-carb diet differently. I not only don't blame them, but now have a reliable resource for patients who struggle, and that's Dr. Iflin's Reset community that can provide all the support they need. Imagine the frustration my patients and even I would feel if I didn't even know about Dr. Iflin's resources. And let's think back even further to the episode I had with Dr. Kristen Bear and Monique Travis, who taught us that instead of focusing on treating multiple chronic medical conditions separately, instead, let's just reduce starch and sugar in foods. And what they found is that many of their chronic conditions resolved on their own. My conventional medical training was the opposite of this approach. I really thank both of them for helping to reprogram my brain and really how I practice medicine now, more focused on optimizing health than just managing chronic disease without hope of cure, one condition at a time. I just optimize people's health with diet, nutrition, and things of that nature. So, we need to think back to Amy Berger, who was one of the first to convince us that dementia was a fuel shortage disease. And by simply giving the brain fat fuel, there was the potential to improve cognitive function. And before Amy, many of us had not heard that type 3 diabetes could also be dementia. And, I had never heard that before. Never knew what a type 3 diabetes was, but she connected the dots. And I really thank her for giving people hope who have early or mild dementia for the possibility of reversing that. And really, I think back to Dr. Andy Fong, who shared a patient story, who also had suffered from cognitive impairment, and with a keto diet and intermittent fasting was able to prove Amy's theory that it's possible to improve cognitive function. So many great guests: Vinnie Tortorich, He confirmed that exercise was not for weight loss, but instead was for weight loss maintenance. And Dr. Cecily Ann Clark Gainhart removed the perception that breakfast was the most important meal. We had all been taught that, of course, and gave us permission to give our gut time to rest. I could go on, but my point is that we are learning and retraining our brains to think outside the box thanks to our wonderful guests. And I promise to continue to have guests whose world perspective will help all of us to evolve and see the world from a different perspective. So, by doing this, our thoughts about so many different aspects of our lives will change. This will then lead to habits that are changing, habits that better serve us, habits that will restore hope of a brighter future, a future hopefully without chronic disease and optimal medical health is what we're trying to achieve. So, but even as I celebrate these great thought leaders, as new thoughts or ways of thinking are being presented to our minds, we must then evaluate if a suggested new way of thinking will serve us. So, are these new thoughts worthy of replacing older thoughts, or should we stick to previous ways of thinking? I have my own litmus test when I'm at such a crossroad, and maybe my approach can be yours as well. I simply ask myself two simple questions. Number one, does this thought add value to my life? That's number one. Number two, does this thought harm me? And before I go any further, I try with everything inside me to only add thoughts that add value and, of course, do not harm me. It's really a simple test that you can do quickly and regularly, and its simplicity makes it easy to apply to your daily decision making every single day. So, one thing for sure, refusing to live with the past negative thoughts that don't serve you anymore is a goal we should all strive for. Those thoughts paralyze us from changing. Those negative thoughts cause us to be unhappy. Those thoughts make us sad. Those thoughts keep us living in fear. And those negative thoughts don't allow us to view the glass as half full, but only half empty. So the good news is that we all have the power to put the negative experiences of the past literally behind us, which we must do to embrace the potential of a bright future fully. So think about it. We all must want a brighter future more than the comfort of the past. And Abraham Lincoln once stated that the best way to predict your future is to create it. So you're probably asking yourself, that sounds nice, Doc, but how the heck am I going to change the way I've been all these years, right? Great question. I can't help but see the glass as half empty, you say. Well, that's just who I am, you say. Well, there is no doubt that change is hard, but hear me, the consequences of not changing may be harder. So I do have a short list of things I tell patients in my clinic to do to help them change those negative thoughts to positive ones. And they're very simple, and I'll share them with you now. Number one, I say listen to inspirational speakers on a daily basis. I think that's an easy thing to do. Whether it's Les Brown, Anthony Robbins, Eric Thomas, all of these inspirational speakers are great to inspire us. Number two, surround yourself with positive-minded people. Need I say more? Number three, keep a gratitude journal. And number four, keep your newly found thoughts in your cup. And you're like, what is the doctor talking about now? So let me elaborate about the cup for a moment. If you truly plan to have a place in your brain for positive thoughts, you have to do a little work. okay? Let's say your brain is a cup. Like the cup many of us use when we enjoy our first cup of coffee or tea, of course, with no sugar. That cup can be filled with negative thoughts or positive thoughts. In this case, I'm talking about your brain. In order to ensure your cup has room for positive thoughts, some of those negative thoughts must be removed out of the way. Many are negative thoughts from the past, mind you. That way, even when old or new negative thoughts try to enter, the positive thoughts have already taken up so much real estate that your brain becomes less habitable for the negative thoughts. So just by filling your cup with inspiration, the right people, or even using a gratitude journal, you will create a new process for managing your thoughts. Like it's like having a bouncer, standing at the entrance to your brain, taking a good look at the thoughts that are trying to enter your brain, but only allowing the right thoughts to enter. So you got this, guys. All right. So Henry David once stated, when any real progress is made, we unlearn and learn anew what we thought we knew before. Yes, by putting the right thoughts in your brain, you will deprogram your current mental program, allowing you to reprogram it to what you've always intended. I'm totally excited and thrilled and can only imagine what will be achieved by all of us if we move towards this ideal of positive thinking. Another way to deal with those negative thoughts from the past is to master another factor that has kept so many of us from achieving our ideal state. And that is, it's those self-limiting beliefs. So even when our bouncer has done a great job keeping negative thoughts from entering our brain, self-limiting beliefs may have already inhabited our brain and can prevent us from achieving our goals. So, what the heck are self-limiting thoughts? And, there are many examples, but I think I'll give you a few just to provide a little clarity and it'll make sense to you when I say them. Here's an example. I will never be smart enough. Imagine saying that to yourself. There's no way I can get the next promotion with so many smart people working here who are smarter than me. You won't even try for the promotion if you think that way, right? I will never get rid of this belly fat. And by the way, I did make a video on YouTube about, belly fat. And if that one resonates with you, you may want to check that out. Here's another. I'll never have the personality people will be attracted to, right? So imagine you're in a conversation with people and you're thinking that way. You're probably not going to have the right personality. So those self-limiting beliefs are disastrous, right? And this way of thinking will likely leave you stuck in a place where progress is nearly impossible. So in order for us to be successful in protecting our nest, we must not only control the thoughts that enter our brains, but also overcome self-limiting beliefs. So let me tell you the 7 things I try to share with people to help them overcome self-limiting beliefs. So let's go with number 1. Number 1, we've already discussed the fact that our thoughts matter. What also matters are the words we say to ourselves. So whenever you're talking to yourself, I want you to pause for a moment and listen to what you're saying to yourself, right? I need us all to be very careful because our words become our reality, just like our thoughts. Our brain can't really tell the difference between a real experience and one that was created by words. Here's an example. Many of my older patients tell me, I can't put that fancy app on my phone for your podcast, doc. I'm too old and I'm not good with technology. That's what they tell me, right? And even if they have a smartphone in their hands, they just don't believe they can do anything with it. So instead, I've asked them to say, I'm a work in progress. And I'll ask them to say it out loud. I'm a work in progress. I will get somebody in my family to put that podcast app on my phone until I feel more comfortable with technology. I remind them that we are all a work in progress. The only reason the so-called younger folk are good with technology is that they practice using it repeatedly over and over again. Even my medical assistant, who's probably 30 years older than me, is more proficient than I am. But with practice, I've kind of caught up to her at this point. So that's number one. Number two is, when self-limiting thinking enters your head, we have to think about replacing that with positive affirmations, right? That's a skill you can master over time with practice. This is pretty easy, guys. And here are a few examples. Here's an affirmation. I trust myself to make the right decision. I have the tools and abilities that I need to do so. That's an example, guys. Here's another. I am becoming closer to my true self every day. How you like that one? Here's another. I am the architect of my life. I build its foundation and choose its contents. And that's pretty simple. So those are just affirmations. And I'll be honest, I literally just Googled positive affirmations so I can share those three with you, right? So you can just Google positive affirmations and get a list of them. And imagine if you choose a few that you like and you talk to yourself daily. What do you think that'll do to your brain? What I think it'll do is help fade away those self-limiting beliefs. So again, words matter, thoughts matter. Let's go to the third example. Another approach that reminds me of that cup example we discussed earlier is to make more time for things that make you happy. It's much harder to have negative and self-limiting thinking when you are doing things that make you happy personally. Rather a hobby, sports, exercise, or even listening to your favorite podcasts. Doing the things you enjoy provides a nice distraction from negativity. I was recently invited to a rooftop Cubs game, and that's the Chicago Cubs, which I enjoyed, of course, in a socially distantly appropriate manner. During the game, my focus was the game, the food that we were fed, and the people who were with me during the game. And I really didn't have any worries about work-related stuff during the game. I really enjoyed myself. And, and like that cup, if you fill your time with things that you enjoy, again, it moves the negativity out of the way. And that's what happened during that game. I was just more focused on enjoying the game than other things. And this happened also when I was asked to speak for Dr. Ken Berry's Perfect Human Diet Conference. It was around September 11th through 13th. I think I spoke on a Saturday. And then they asked me to give them a song I could play as my intro song, which was kind of clever of them. I chose a rap song by the rapper Common entitled The Light. As I searched for the right song for my favorite rap artist, I realized that I simply don't listen to music much anymore. So I pledged to do just that and have noticed my brain is focused on the music, leaving little room for self-limiting thinking. My only caution, if you choose this approach, is to be sure to listen to uplifting music, which is why I listen to a rapper who only creates uplifting music about relationships, social justice, and even what rap music should be and not what it is necessarily. So again, this idea of, just being able to fill your cup and fill it with good stuff really just takes away time for self-limiting thoughts to enter your brain. So make sure you make time for fun stuff. Even during a pandemic, we can make time for fun things. Here's another principle. And by the way, I thought about that Cubs game, just like, how do I go to a Cubs game? Well, they have rooftops. Chicago's a little bit of a unique place. So they have a lot of the homes surrounding the park that have areas on the rooftop. So those are places where you can go see the game without being in the actual stadium. Just a FYI for those who are not familiar with the Cubs. The fourth example I want to talk about or principle is to stop overthinking. Overthinking can change how you interact with others, whether you're at work, school, or even in your personal life. Most importantly, overthinking can also cause emotional distress based on information that may not be valid at all. To overcome this, it will be very important to simply change your perspective. In other words, pledge to never fully judge a situation until you've given it adequate time or have additional information before you fully process it. And here's a simple example. I've seen couple after couple dealing with a positive screening test for herpes, for example. And before I can explain what that positive screen means, some are literally on the verge of divorce, not even giving me a chance to tell them that, the test could have not been done before. It's just a screening test. We didn't have this kind of technology in the past. They don't want to hear any of that. They are ready to get a divorce. So we have to be careful to pause, because if they had just listened to me, they wouldn't have overthought what they made assumptions about. Another example is the person who misplaces their keys and comes in worrying that they have dementia, right? Have you guys ever thought that? I think we all have. By the time they see me, they've already diagnosed dementia and are simply looking for the confirmation test. I often remind them that the patient with dementia is rarely diagnosed by themselves. It's usually them coming in with their family member that's saying they have a memory problem. I also tell them dementia is not misplacing your keys. Dementia is not knowing what the keys are used for. So I want you guys to pause and let the dust settle before acting on new information. That way you will not get caught up in overthinking things that you shouldn't be. Here's number 5. And for this one, I want you to be careful whom you spend time with. You basically become your surroundings, right? The company you keep says a lot about you. Friends have a significant influence on how you feel, think, and behave. For example, when you are trying to protect your nest and focus on the end, which is for nutrition, how well you manage your nutritional decisions will be impacted by who you spend time with. If you struggle to resist temptation, surrounding yourself with people who possess a high degree of self-discipline can actually help. A 2013 study published by Psychological Science reports that when people are running low on self-control, they often seek out self-disciplined people to boost their willpower. My kids were raised to think in terms of their friends in the following way. I literally had them to recite the following: if we can't grow together, we can't chill together. And as a parent, this helped minimize the burden of trying to clean up self-limiting ways of thinking they may have learned from others that don't serve them well. Even our decision to choose their high school was grounded in choosing a school with values. And I want to recite the pledge that my kids had to say every morning from Providence St. Mel's High School in Chicago before they started their day. Here it is. At Providence St. Mel's, we believe in the creation of inspired lives produced by the miracle of hard work. We are not frightened by the challenges of reality, but believe we can change our perception of this world and our place within it. So we work, plan, build, and dream in that order. We believe that one must earn the right to dream. Our talent, discipline, and integrity will be our contribution to a new world, because we believe that we can take this place, this time, and this people and make a better place, a better time, and a better people. With God's help, we will either find a way or make one. I mean, think about starting a kid's day with a statement like that. I mean, it's amazing. So shout out to Providence St. Mel's, a wonderful school on the west side of Chicago. And shout out to my boys, Brandon and Justin Hampton, for, doing that every day. And I think that's the reason why they ended up at Washington University in St. Louis, because they were, led by the right kind of people, and their surroundings was one of success. And I also want to do a shout out to my oldest son, Brandon, who was inspired to start his own podcast entitled Ritmos Negros, which means, and I'm probably not saying it right, but bear with me. It's in English and Spanish, and you can see who's the Spanish speaker. It's not me. But basically, Black rhythms, and I think you'll like that. In fact, I'll put a link in the show notes. Of course, I got to promote my son, but it's a beautiful podcast that talks about, what's the, connection between African and Latin American culture and how they've been influenced in such a way by each other. So I think you'll find that interesting. So as we all take our life journey, we must make sure we are particular about our surroundings, which will make it so much easier to reach our long-term goals. So as my kids have learned, to the extent you can control it, make sure you chill with the right people. So let's go on to my sixth example, which is simply stop having an assuming mindset. For example, I assumed when I started making videos and podcasts that nobody would help me achieve my goals. I started my journey initially with Twitter to find my audience without concerns about anything other than interacting and creating content. Then out of nowhere came my low-carb support and encouragement, which inspired me to continue my journey even more. And once the momentum train starts, it's hard to stop it. So again, don't have an assuming mindset. My final tip related to self-limiting beliefs is to not allow the belief systems of others to become your belief systems unless those beliefs actually serve you. Let's pause again, not a long pause, and spell the word belief. Let's start. It's B-E. Okay, so far so good, right? L-I-E. As you can see, there may be a big fat lie in some of the beliefs we have, especially the ones that come from others. So we don't have to spell the rest. I just want you to understand, unless a belief serve you, that's the ones you keep, and the old beliefs that don't serve you, we gotta let those go. So I just want your beliefs matter, and don't hold on to beliefs that are not serving you. So just wanted to give you guys some tips on how to deal with self-limiting thinking. And I do have some good news and some bad news all wrapped in one. The good news is that you are the biggest key to your success, right? And I think you know that. So what's bad? Well, you are the only barrier to preventing your success from occurring. So it's, really just coming down to you deciding that you are ready to walk towards your optimal life, the life you've always wanted. And I personally love being responsible for my own destiny. I really do. And I think you will too. So today, all we are doing is simply, going 30,000 feet in the air like we're, traveling in a jetliner and just trying to view the world through a different lens. And what this does, it provides a much needed perspective that will make the rest of our journey much easier. So that's what it's really all about. So let's take a brief moment to connect the dots and better understand how we think can impact our immune system. And again, this N, E-S-T, nest, has a T, and a T is about thinking. It's also for trauma, but today it's all about the thinking. So did you know that negative thinking really does affect our immune system? That was, not surprising to me, but interesting to say the least. Many previous studies have shown that emotions and stress can adversely affect the immune system. In fact, one study as reported by its study leader, Richard Davison at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, that's in the U.S., found that the prefrontal cortex was associated with depression. And when asked to dwell on distressing episodes in their life, people who had the greatest activity in the right prefrontal cortex had a markedly lower antibody level after an influenza vaccine. And this information is timely, of course. In contrast, those showing exceptional activity in the left prefrontal when recalling happy times developed high antibody levels. So, when we finally get our COVID-19 vaccine along with the flu and pneumonia vaccines, let's make sure we're in a good mood. This study essentially provides strong evidence that just by being a positive person could have positive impacts on your health. And that wasn't only a study. Another study was done by Italian and UK researchers that also revealed that depressed elderly people have fewer lymphocytes and T cells, white blood cells crucial for fighting disease. So this study was published in Psychotherapy and Psychosomatics. So that's some science to kind of support the idea. And I just want to get that in your brain so you know it. So my ask for all of you, let's keep it simple. All I'm asking is for each and every one of you who have a desire to achieve the goal of optimizing your health to do the following. Let's start with the first thought. Set a basic goal of just being better at how you think than you were yesterday. That's it. And then tomorrow, your goal is to be better than you were today. That's it. So it's really that simple. If you keep it simple and don't allow your old self to get in the way of whom you want to be, then I can promise you won't be disappointed with the outcome. Now you have the wisdom not to allow self-limiting thinking to rule over your life. You will regain your power one day at a time until one day you won't even recognize yourself when you look in the mirror. You now view the world through a different lens, and the world views you differently as well. Congratulations, protecting your nest will be much easier now. So take a moment and reflect on all you've heard today and make a decision right now that you will daily, in a simple, manageable, obtainable way, most importantly, incremental steps you'll take every day to improve your life. Your only competition is you. Just pledge to be a better version of yourself than you are today, and do that every single day. Again, that's all you have to do. It's like a compounding interest calculator. I actually did this exercise for my boys, and we were actually deciding about cable. And I realized that the difference in what we would save and pay was about $200, right? So I said, if I give you guys each $100, would you prefer that invested versus keeping cable? So think about any 20-year-old you have in your life and talk to them about the importance of, making incremental investments, right? So just small changes, right? And that's what you're going to do. So let's do the calculation. You can do this literally when you get away from this podcast. $100 a month invested in the S&P 500. And let's just say it's going to do 11 or 12%. If it does 12% in 45 years, that means they're at 65 years of age. That's going to be $1.8 million, right? So my kids were like, we'll choose the investment over the cable. And the incremental investment in your lifestyle will have the same return on investment. It's really that simple. And this can happen every aspects of your life, whether it's your marriage, your career. Incremental change is the key. And I just can't wait to hear about your evolution in the comment section. And remember, if you make a comment, you may inspire other people. So let's do the following. Just like you were at the Cubs game with me, on the rooftops, let's say the following. Because I now control my thoughts and don't have self-limiting thinking, my life is better. My relationships are better. My parenting is better. My career is better. And most importantly, my sense of purpose is better. I want to remind you guys, and I think you already know this, life is not perfect, nor is it easy, but I can now face life head on without fear, given the right tools. If you master your thoughts and your self-limiting beliefs, then maybe, just maybe, you will have something left for your family, your job, your community, and maybe even your country. So let's get to the work of incrementally changing our thoughts. I promise you that's going to be the key to your success. And so although I told you in the beginning that nutrition may be the most important, you could easily argue that how we think is just as important. So I really appreciate you guys taking time to listen to this. I hope it adds value to your life. And as I always say, until we meet again, be well and continue to protect your nest. You've been listening to Protecting Your Nest with Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com.